Hello, and welcome to the Max Revenue Show. I'm your host, Trey Shields, along with the Zen Master of Commercial Insurance, Micah Salas. Micah, how are you this morning?
Good, man. How are you?
Love that enthusiasm. I can always count on you to just come in and just bring the energy for all of our listeners. So I appreciate that. You're like I don't even know what to say. You're just Mr. Dependable. You're just always there. You always raise the bar. I just really appreciate that about you.
I sense the sarcasm, but I don't know how else to am I supposed to scream? I mean, I was like, "Hey, I'm good." It's like I was like, "I'm good," I don't know. That's just me being me, man. Keep it
Fair
real.
enough. All right, ladies and gents, we have a treat for you today. We have the I don't know. I don't even know what you would even I haven't come up with a name yet, but we have a guest today, Mr. David Goldsmith. He is an absolute killer from up in the Northwest. We have gotten to watch him develop over the years. He was one of the early Mex revenue faithfuls and has long just flown. He flew the coop and is doing his own thing and is absolutely crushing it like we would like to see everybody do. He has outgrown max revenue and is off flying in bigger and better areas and just absolutely crushing revenue. So we're going to get into that. But first, shout out to today's sponsor, Insurance Xdate. Pull up my link here. Shame on me. Generate leads, win new biz. Insurance Xdate is where new business begins. Industry relevant data delivered on a software platform built for sales, not research. Identify and engage with prospects in minutes. Keep track of your opportunities and get production done. Now over to you, David. David, thanks for joining us today. You're the man. Can't wait to talk to you.
Absolutely. Excited to be here, guys. Thanks for reaching out to me.
So, like I said at the beginning, you and I and you and Micah touched base a few times back when this max revenue thing kicked off 3 years ago, and you were doing stuff a certain way, and you have since evolved from that. So before we get into where you're at now, can you just rewind the tape and let's talk about your first couple of years and what you were doing because it was really cool. And tell us about the first couple of years and how you were going about digging up business.
Yeah. So I started when I was, freshly 18, going into college. I got an internship at a regional firm here in Washington State. They had a great process for ramping up new producers. We didn't get paid well. And we didn't hold on to a book, but I was an intern for probably 2 or 3 years there, and all we did was cold call in the construction vertical. And within the construction vertical, we really chased some niches. For me, it was fire suppression for the most part, and so we figured out that there wasn't a whole lot of markets out there. And they were all E&S. I think we picked up a few proprietary markets as well, for various associations and whatnot within the fire suppression, fire alarm space. Uh, I was kind of an early adopter of Zoom Info and then Zoom Engage, which allowed me to do a lot of email campaigning. And what we found is that in those early days, it worked pretty well, all things considered. So I would take, fire suppression and I would email campaign across the country, and there wasn't a whole lot of in-person interactions or relationship building, but we were really effective at what we did. And I was able to pick up some really good habits over those few years. Just sticking to a process, having some discipline and continuing to chase the revenue, so to speak.
Mike, I think you were the first person to talk with David, and you
Yeah.
called me and you were
I
like, dude, I just talked to this young guy out of Washington that is email blasting and absolutely crushing it.
but I thought email's basically dead because I send emails, sporadically, and they're like the reply rate is probably like 0.001. And then I talk to you and you're like, dude, I'm killing it on emails. So I was like, it's just always interesting to talk to people. But as you could you could probably explain, there's a reason that your emails were probably working a lot more effectively than mine. Why don't you you kind of share what your email method was, and I know that you've evolved on from this too. So,
Yeah.
but I still think it's interesting for people out there because it could probably be effective for certain niches, maybe. But what were you doing that made the email work so well? And also, then part two of that is you're emailing people all over the country. You'd said, how did you bridge the gap with folks? Because hey, this is a relationship business. You got to shake their hand. Obviously, you can't go do that with every contractor. So, how did you overcome that obstacle? And yeah, just kind of share that with us.
Yeah. So at the time I was 18 through 23. I worked at this firm. And, with age being a factor, it was a little difficult to feel like relationships were possible. But I think you can beat a lot of that. You can overcome a lot of that with being effective. And we were really effective. I feel like I had emails not maybe down to an exact science, but they're short, they were sweet, under 90 words, and they were to the point, right? I think everyone sees a lot of sales emails and they think, I got a create a value statement and it's similar to SaaS sales and whatnot that you see in the tech industry. And I think in the insurance industry, you're selling a product that doesn't technically exist. No one understands it and no one wants to talk about it. So you might as well be quick and dirty with it. So I would reach out to people across the country and say, hey, this is what I do. This is who I am. We do fire suppression. That's all we do. We have a couple markets you don't have access to or your broker doesn't have access to, more than likely. And I think this is something worth talking about. And just keeping it that simple and that quick. My response rate, it was never 30%, right? But it was hovering somewhere probably around that 5 to 10% mark. And that's kind of all you need when you're playing the volume game.
Yep. Yeah, that's okay. So that makes a ton of sense. Yeah. So you dangle the carrot of we got an exclusive market. Let's have a conversation, and then go down that path a little bit. So you have an exclusive market. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. And then I guess the whole goal of that first conversation is, like, where did you take it from there? Did you quickly try to decipher, hey, are they already with the market I have, or how do you kind of delineate and figure out if it's a play or not?
Yeah, that was part of it. But even if they were in a market that we had access to and that maybe potentially was the most competitive, we had so much volume in the space that you could look at someone's general liability policy or someone's comp policy and be able to determine within 10 minutes of looking at their policies whether or not it truly was competitive, and then use that as leverage to say, hey, you're in the right space, you're just not with the right broker, and continue down that path. Yeah, it worked for the time, and it really does. I think to this day that process probably still works really well. I know we'll get into it, but I've certainly evolved past that. But it created good revenue. I mean, I was averaging 120 to 150,000 of revenue a year, and that was split. I usually split an account with my head of construction or my mentor, whoever it was. But for
So
18
really
to
300.
Yeah,
I mean, gross revenue.
but for someone between the ages of 18 and 23, I was ecstatic.
Yeah. No, that's how did you find any pushback from emailing people and you're 5-6 states away, and then them did they want to meet you a lot, or did they didn't really care because they just like, hey, this guy knows what he's doing, he's an expert,
Yeah, no,
we don't need to see you.
they didn't really care. We didn't win everything. But I found what it really did was it developed my ability to figure out what was a good opportunity and what was not a good opportunity, because I could figure out very quickly, was this a 40-year relationship? Did this have nothing to do with insurance, or were these guys in pain, they needed help? And to this day, I think I use that mentally as like a bucket of, is this an actionable opportunity, or is this an opportunity that's going to take some time to develop? And back then, if it was going to take some time to develop, it really was an opportunity and you had to move on.
With
Go ahead,
this
Trey.
cold email approach that you started your career with, what was the I guess the closing rate would be the right thing. Like, how many deals did you work on that you got across the finish line? What would that spread look like?
I would, looking back on it, I would say that we probably competed, or I probably competed on, I want to say it was maybe 50 opportunities a year. I bet would be a good guess. Anywhere, and the ranges of revenue would be anywhere between, let's call it 5 to 10K revenue, and all the way up to 60 to 80K revenue.
Now, you do that for your first couple of years, and then you and I connected. I think I just put out like an email, like, "Hey, if you want to jam, here's my Calendly link or whatever." And you hopped on, and we were talking shop, and you said, "Trey, I'm gonna leave, and I'm gonna go to this other place. I'm completely scrapping what I'm doing. I have a new idea of how I want to do this thing, and here's what I'm doing." And I'm thinking, what are you doing? You're doing great. Why would you just jump ship? So tell me where you went, what this change in ideology was about how you were approaching producing. Like, tell me about that paradigm shift for you. What was that, and what kicked that off, and then where are you at now?
Yeah. So like I said, when I first started, I had some really great mentors, and some really great training in terms of being able to produce opportunities. Um, I would say, I mean, when I got into this when I was 18, I figured out very quickly, and it was lucky that I stumbled into this, but I found out very quickly I was extremely passionate about this, and not just the sales aspect and not just the revenue generation aspect, but all aspects of construction risk, essentially. And I think I had ran my course and kind of developed what I could out of the brokerage firm that I was with, a smaller regional. But I was always chasing that dragon, right? I always wanted to work on bigger stuff, more complex deals. And I thought that where I was at was not going to be able to accomplish that. And so I got an opportunity to work at a much larger regional firm, that then became a large national firm, but they were known across the West Coast as being, at least in the top 2 or 3 for construction brokerage firms. Um, Working with E&R general contractors, I mean, they were, dialed as far as it went in construction, but they had no process for outbound sales. All of their revenue they had accumulated, I think they were about $100 million firm at that time, was from referrals. And so when I sat down, I think I got a beer or coffee with who ended up becoming my boss. He, as he was talking about who they were, the culture they had, the processes they had in place, I started to connect the dots and realize, hey, the process that I know to create new opportunities combined with the expertise and the mentorship and the account management team of this firm, I mean, it would be essentially unstoppable. And it has really became that in a way. Um, so I guess really what it ended up coming down to was I just wanted to work on bigger things under mentors that were more experienced in large accounts.
So what does that process look like now? Whereas you were a cold email guy in the beginning, what does your process look like for David now?
There is still a ton of cold outbound. I wouldn't say it's just email blasting. I don't do really any email blasting now, and there is a way to do that effectively if you wanted to get into it later. Um, but I've now switched over to the more targeted approach, the more relationship heavy side. I still chase niches, still chase specialty subcontractors. But the process is I would say that I work, well, probably 4 or 5 times harder than I need to for the revenue of my book and the revenue I produce. But I do it strategically because what got me here isn't necessarily going to get me where I want to go, 5 or 10 years down the road. So one of the first things I did when I got here was, relentlessly pursue mentorship under some of the better producers at this organization. So I shadow on a couple of our largest general contractors that we service, some of our E&R contractors. I don't do it for revenue. I just do it for the experience. I have not just one mentor anymore. I have 4 or 5. I have some that are really technical. I have some that are really good producers. And some others that are just willing to hop on a plane with me and go to a prospect meeting in Nevada tomorrow if I got one. So my process these days is I don't do any Teams calls. I don't do any Zoom calls. If I'm going to meet with somebody, I get on a plane and I go. So most of my days are spent traveling. And I follow some of the similar specialty subcontractor niches, not necessarily fire suppression, but I'm not avoiding it. But I found a couple specialties that I can pursue nationally. And that has been really good for me. So, if I get a meeting in Missoula, Montana, I'm going to go find 5 other meetings in Missoula, Montana. And I'm going to hop on a plane and I'm going to go down there and I'm going to do 5 meetings. And then I'm going to get 5 meetings in San Francisco and then 5 meetings in San Diego. And I'm going to go over to Boise. And then 3 months, 4 months from now, I'm going to rinse and repeat. I'm going to go find 3 to 5 new appointments in Missoula and San Francisco. And every time I go back, I continue to develop the prospecting pool that I have. And I'm not doing that from a standpoint of like, how can I effectively close this deal? And I don't need to build a relationship and I'm just looking for revenue. It's now pretty much the opposite. I'm going down there every 3 months and I'm saying, hey, whether or not you want to work with me, I just want to grab coffee. I want to grab lunch. Let's go do something. And those end up turning into real opportunities and real relationships over time.
So you basically, let's just say Boise, right? You go there, you have your little first nest of 5 targets, then you go back, you kind of keep expanding it. Maybe eventually you have 20 legit opportunities or, in Boise. And essentially you're basically working like a quarterly touch system, right? I mean, is that,
Yeah.
if I'm understanding you right, is that you're going there once a quarter, grabbing a coffee, keeping in touch, talking insurance a little bit, maybe business overall?
Yeah, that's exactly what I do. And it's more effective than one would think. And I think that's probably, I don't know if that was a learned trait or a natural trait. I assume that, the training I got for the first 5 years of cold calling to be effective does spill over into being effective in person. There was a quite the learning curve, just going from over Teams calls to everything being in person. But I separate all my prospects into a couple different buckets. I could be more organized, but I do still look for those opportunities that I can be effective immediately on. So I'm always keeping my eye out for those. And then I separate some of the rest into, maybe not now, but certainly next year, or maybe the year after. And then I have long-term opportunities. And so typically the long-term opportunities are just going to be a higher revenue size. It's not every day you're flipping a $500,000 opportunity within 12 months or 24 months, right? But I still want those because I know that maybe I'm not going to grab them now, but in 10 years, that's probably what I'm primarily going to be going after. So I'm developing leads that I have no real interest in closing now, but I have a ton of leads that I'm working on all the time on a quarterly basis, like you talked.
When you and I did a pre-call for this, we talked revenue numbers. So first, talk about the size accounts that you're going after now, and then let's talk about your pipeline right now, and then where you're at book size. You started over 3 years ago, almost to the date, right? So let's talk revenues and what you've been able to do in 3, 4 years, whatever it's 2 years.
Yeah. So I started April of 2023. So I think I'm coming up on 3 years now, very shortly. My first year, I didn't do anything in revenue, actually. I was just trying to make the transition smooth from my old firm. And then the first true year, I did 330,000 of revenue. This last year, I did 500,000 in revenue, and then I'm starting out of the gate at 300,000 of revenue. With I'm going to argue 300 or 400,000 of revenue hope to close in the next month or so. That I feel good about. And keep in mind, a lot of this is still split. Probably 75% of it's still split. So the rule I have right now is that if it's under 100,000 of revenue, I'll try and work the deal myself, and I usually have success in that. But if I can sense that age is going to be a problem or there's some other X factor at play, I'm not going to hesitate to bring someone in. I don't think it's ever worth. There's definitely accounts out there. If it's a $30,000 deal, I'm going to go ahead and stretch myself and get myself outside of my comfort zone to see if I can work it alone, because that's an account size that I feel comfortable with missing on if I have to. But anything over 100,000 of revenue, I'm typically working with a mentor or an older coworker here. And I would say our close percentage is probably well over 60 to 70%, probably in the 70 to 80% range. We're pretty effective.
Are you closing those? Are those pretty much all AOR'd or
All BORs?
Yeah, that's what I figured.
So I have 24 clients right now. Maybe like 22 clients that are, we've got some that have a home building arm or whatever. And I've only quoted one of them.
Nice.
You said if age is a factor. How old are you? Just for everybody listening.
26.
But you've grown a beard, so that adds like 5 years.
It does help.
I'm giving you mid 30s minimum. I mean, you're put together. You don't look like a kid.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It helps. I have sat down a couple times and people are blown away by my age, and then other people clock it immediately and say, hey, you're what, 26? I'm like, yeah, you're right.
24 clients, and that's basically about 1.1 million. Is that right so far? I mean, I know you're going to close a bunch more here in the next 60 days, but
it's probably hovering about 1.3 build.
Okay.
If I didn't do anything by the end of this year, we don't BORs. We kind of count on a billing cycle.
Gotcha. So yeah, so you're talking. I suck at math, but what is that? About a 50 or 60K average? Is that right?
Yep. After splits.
Yeah. So really about 120K, about $100,000 your average size deal, because you're splitting. You're giving about 25% away to the guy you're bringing in, basically. How are you getting in the doors of these larger 100K files? Is it just because you're so specialized and you have a really solid team and you can basically kind of do that, or is it just a long approach where you're like, hey, I just want to have a coffee, and you really push for that, and then they just say they talk with you at least, or what's the?
Yeah. I would say a lot of it does come down to just the length, the experience that I have in cold outbound. You're just naturally going to go after bigger and bigger accounts. You're going to get better at talking to them. I still keep it short. I keep it sweet. I don't talk about insurance as much as I can avoid it, which I think is a huge differentiator in terms of being effective on smaller size revenue accounts and getting your way into the larger ones. Of course, if I have a hook, then I will utilize a hook. Such as, if it's a large general contractor at a Boise and I don't think that they have an SDI program set up, of course I'm going to use that to try and get my way in the door. But I do feel like just showing your expertise out of the gate in construction in general, rather than necessarily construction insurance, is a really good way to find an opportunity to meet and connect. Usually I'm coming out of the gate saying, hey, this is who I am. This is what I do. These are the clients we work with. I'm going to be in Boise. I'm going to be down in your neck of the woods. Would love the opportunity to connect, learn more about you, and hopefully share some insights we're seeing with our own general contractors or our own specialty subcontractors. And if we can't meet, are you going to be at Connex, or are you going to be at this event? Are you going to be at this event? So just kind of relentlessly pursuing them without being just another insurance guy, if that makes sense.
It does.
What does your service and support team look like underneath you?
For every account, we get an account executive that will run the servicing side, and they're supported by an account manager that's supported by 2 associate account managers. for like the daily service needs.
And what do renewals look like? Your AEs are running most of your renewals?
In a normal world, yes. I don't have AEs on a ton of my accounts because I'm pretty hands-on. So I think, like I mentioned towards the beginning, it feels like I'm doing 4 to 5 times the work that I probably should be doing for the book size I have. And that includes renewals. But that is really just because I'm trying to set myself up for success in my 30s. I feel like the more work I put in now to understand the technical side, to understand the renewal process, how to run a good renewal process, how to communicate with the client effectively, the better I'm going to be down the road. So I'd rather work hard now and hopefully get a bit of a free ride later in my career.
What would you attribute most of your development when it comes to like business acumen in the construction world? What would you attribute most of that to? Is just osmosis, kind of hanging out with the mentors, or going to trade shows, reading books, or like articles? Like, what's that look like? If someone's like, hey, I want to really become an expert like David in whatever industry, like, what do you do?
A lot of it's osmosis. I'm always been kind of a naturally curious person, so I ask a shit ton of questions all the time. Designations got me so far. I got my Chris, as I'm sure a lot of people do. I got my arm, but I'm really big on like you said, reading articles. I try and read as many ERMI articles as I can. I set up time with my mentors, some of them that work on, our ENR 400 general contractors. I'll steal 30 minutes or an hour of their time every couple of weeks to just ask as many questions as I can that I've come across. I've actually, in some of my specialty niches, I've gone out and gotten certified in whatever that is, last year, as an example, I took 8 months and went to night school here at UW in Seattle to go get my commercial real estate development certificate. And the continued education was cool because, I didn't want to just talk about insurance when it came to real estate developers. I wanted to be able to talk about cap rates and everything that was going on in the industry. But it was also great because it put me in a classroom with 50 other real estate professionals that I could network with. And every professor was a real estate developer from the Pacific Northwest. So it allowed me to prospect that way as well. So that's, I guess, an example. I do a ton of studying off hours. I read a ton of articles. I try and read the Seattle Business Journal, or the DJC, as we call it. 2 articles every day. We've got a national practice leader in construction. He used to run education series on construction every week or 2. So wherever I can find it, I'll take it.
Funny, I played golf with this guy who's been wildly successful. He's sold several companies, was a CFO at a publicly traded company. Now he runs about a $60 million a year subcontracting company. And he's like, yeah, I like to read 4 hours a day. And I was like, what? I'm like, 4 hours a day. And he's like, I'm not counting Twitter, Facebook, he's like, I'm talking legit. And I'm like, now that to me, I was like, I can, because I'm usually I can get like 45 minutes to an hour, but I don't, then I'm not thinking about all the different downtime at work, right? And instead of scrolling LinkedIn, I mean, you could take 30 minutes at lunch and read a good ERMI article or a trade, some trade articles. And so you start to think about it, like how much time you have if you're not wasting it. And, but this guy was all about learning. So it's just interesting, obviously, the success you've had and what this guy obviously has achieved.
Yeah.
That's why I was not a very
like...
good producer, because I just hated reading all that shit. That's probably why I averaged what I averaged, and David writes a gajillion times more. That's not for me. That shit bores me to tears.
I have found that there are producers that you really don't need to know anything to produce really well. That is one thing about going to a larger brokerage firm, is I've seen a wide spectrum of different personalities and different abilities. And there are guys that produce, there was a guy last year that produced 2.4 million of new biz revenue at our firm. And I don't think he's spending his time reading articles, to be honest.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to do it, but the interesting, like for you enjoy learning, and and also you're 26, so it also bridges that gap between you and the guy who's 40, right? That you're competing against, and you are going after larger accounts. That to have that level of knowledge, and I think what it does for when I've learned something or gotten sharper and stuff, it's like it honestly, you don't even talk about all of it that much. It's just you exude the confidence in the meeting. It's hard to explain, but I think it just kind of like you give off like the aura that like, hey, you know what you're talking about, even if you don't have to get in the weeds on stuff, right?
Yeah.
Um,
No, that makes
Curious
sense.
question. I have a question for you on you said you produced 0 year 1 at your new firm. What were they what was the firm's reaction, and what was your own internal uh like headspace like during that point?
My headspace was not great, especially coming from someone that was used to producing at some level at least. So when I left my old firm, there was some loose ends that were being tied up for a time.
Sure.
Yeah.
I get it.
And so in the pursuit of not shaking that tree too much, I think my firm really just told me to stand down and just take the time to learn, and because there was certainly a ramp up period. So I took that time to shadow older producers, go on meetings with them. They would let me audit their accounts, and then they would give me feedback on that. So they win, I win. I spent a lot of that time putting my processes in place and organizing myself so I could hit the ground running year two, because it was probably it was 8 months of just sitting there and learning through osmosis, as you said. And then the next year it was kind of balls to the walls. I feel like if there was one word I would use to describe my process, it's just relentless. Just relentless in the pursuit of opportunities.
Well, it looks like we lost. Oh, there we go.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, you're back. You froze for about, I think, 10 seconds.
Sorry.
You said
about that.
relentless, I think was the key word, right?
Yeah, relentless. Relentless in finding opportunities, relentless in building relationships, relentless in continued education. Just kind of nonstop.
So you go from this, I don't know, maybe smaller regional player to now you're with a larger regional that specializes, and even now a national firm, what they evolved into. And you just said there's a guy in there that did 2.4 mil last year. What was that like going from, like, once you step into the room with the real top pros, like was that an eye opener? Did you already kind of know that world existed? And the reason why I ask this is you hear you see numbers, you see different things online or like on LinkedIn. And funny thing is, I don't think a lot of the mid-market realizes that there's people like that out there, like the guy that you work with, or even you, right? That there's these guys out here putting up these crazy numbers. And I think that's one of the big benefits is working at a big shop, is like you walk in and then you see what's possible, and you're like, oh my gosh, I've been playing collegiate ball, but there's this pro level over here that I didn't know existed. What was that like, and was that a year experience?
That was stressful. Is the first thing that comes to my mind. It was stressful, and it was incredible to see what was possible, and not just possible for someone that's 50, 55, been doing this for 35 years. I saw someone that was still in their 20s that did $1 million in revenue when I first got here. We went to a sales summit, I want to say 2 months after I came on board, and there was a guy that was 28 or 29 that hit $1 million in hospitality. Blew my mind. So I mean, it was really cool to see that. And I still, even today, that grounds me a little bit, because even if I'm doing 500 a year, I know that that's not the end of the road, right? That's not the ceiling. And it's really just what we put, the box we put ourselves in, essentially. Like, is there a difference between a 20K revenue count and a 200K revenue count? Yes, I would argue yes, there's probably a little bit of a difference, but the difference between a 200K account and a $500,000 account is maybe not as wide as some people think. It takes experience, it takes a good service team, but I think it's totally doable. And so from what I've seen over the past couple of years, it feels like people produce the accounts they're comfortable producing. And so out of that, I've really pushed myself to continue to work on or go after larger and larger accounts. Um, and part of the advantage of the mentors that I've had is that they will pull me into opportunities, RFPs with them. I don't take a huge split. But for instance, I'm flying down to Florida tomorrow to be a finalist in RFP for a national power line company. And I'm in it for, I get 25% of the revenue and year one, and then by year 4, I'll get 100%, and I'll phase my older coworker out. And so those kind of opportunities are huge. For me, it's not really about the revenue. It's really about the experience of being able to work on something like that, because it's not every day that you get that opportunity. And especially to get that opportunity without a ton of the stress and pressure of performing, right? I can kind of just help on the sidelines for a few years while I learn.
I'm curious when you said that one's an RFP, but out of your 22 other accounts, I know you've won them all in AOR. So obviously, if you do RFP, you're going to get hired. Are most of these RFP situations, or what's your guys' playbook? Like, what's the angle you typically take? Is it kind of
Yeah.
we call it due diligence here a lot of times, but is it some version of that, or what does it look like on your end that
Yeah.
you guys are doing?
It's not so different than your due diligence process, which I did buy and go through, by the way, when I first got
No,
here. Spent
thanks.
That's how I filled some of that 8 months up. Um, I think if we were to boil down my process, it's actually, it really is process, resources, results. And that's the story I sell for the most part. Our process is really good. It's not so different than your whole due diligence process in that we still audit the policies. But we have a lot of other resources that we can utilize with our clients that we believe make an impact. And so part of it's, what does your pre-renewal process look like? Which I know you guys talk about. Is your broker coming in 90 to 120 days out? When he comes to the table, does he already have an idea of what the incumbent carriers want for renewal? Is that 5%? Is that 10%? What does the market look like? Not just for the general liability comp and auto, but for EPLI, cyber, D&O, et cetera. Have we looked at your contracts? What does your contractual risk transfer look like? Insurance is, we always say insurance is the last and most expensive way to deal with risk. So what else can we focus on to mitigate that exposure to loss, to control the losses? So whether that's contractual risk transfer, whether you're avoiding the risk or deciding to take that risk, even though it's uninsurable. So there's some buzzwords in there, but I guess the point is that we're looking for any way to show that we're not just your broker, your insurance guy, but we're more of a business consultant to you guys. And then essentially after that whole process is done, I'd say it's, choose your horse. We're not going to go into the market. We're not going to make the best result for you. If you want to do it that way, I would just stay with your broker. And then you can hire us or don't hire us.
Yeah. And obviously, you lay out the process, show the resources that you offer and how they strategically would help position them better in the market, I would assume. And then when you say pick your horse, I mean, you have that is one of the, for you guys listening, that's one of the pros of when I was at MMA, I did that a lot, right? It was like, hey, we have all these resources. You're paying X amount to somebody. You're paying $100,000 to somebody. Why not pay it to us and we'll help in all these other areas, right? I mean, it makes a ton of sense. And I think especially if you're going to call on the $100,000 plus accounts, there's actually validity to it. I think where those a lot of times become lip services when you're talking $30,000-$40,000 revenue files. It still can be legit, but a lot of times it's like, at least from what I've seen, it's not quite as makes a difference. It doesn't move the needle as much.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting.
Agree with that. It's also about being just transparent in the process and what we can provide them. If someone's a specialty subcontractor, second or third tier subcontractor, I'm not going to sell them certificate compliance. That's useless to them. But on the other hand, if they're in a captive, I'm going to be transparent there too. You don't really need us to place your insurance. Yeah, you need us to place excess and some ancillary lines. But when you're in a captive, what you want is a risk consultant partner. You don't need a broker. You need us to help you control your risk to maximize the dividend that you would get out of your captive. So I guess it just changes from opportunity to opportunity, but tell a good story and be genuine in what you say and be passionate about it. I used to want to sound more like a 40-year-old when I first came here. And then I realized there's a lot more power in just being the most effective 26-year-old they've ever met.
Tweet
Good
that.
quote.
I'm gonna write that one down.
Yeah.
You mentioned captives. Talk to me about how y'all go about working with captives. Writing a lot of subspecialty contractors. Is most of your stuff captives? Is it 50-50? Like what does that look like? How often y'all utilizing captives?
It's not super popular. A lot of that is, Washington is monopolistic, so we're a little bit more narrow in the captive options or alternative risk financing solutions. A couple in high deductible programs, but I would say I only have 2 or 3 captive clients at this point. And I don't know. I look at captives as, I'm not pushing one captive or another. In the specialty space, the captives do narrow quite a bit. But I just took over a captive client end of last year and almost immediately pulled half the captive lines out because I was able to find a better guarantee cost solution. And they're private equity owned, and so there was some other factors at play there, but it just made more sense to create an immediate premium reduction for the private equity firm than to keep them in this captive that we're kind of overpricing them, essentially. So I guess I'm agnostic when it comes to any type of alternative risk solution.
Yeah. Are you guys going typically going on a fee basis, or do you go on just keep it commissions, be transparent, like, hey, this is the deal?
Yeah.
I was interested to get people's take on that because I can see both sides of it. I think if you're transparent, it doesn't really matter as long as the client's comfortable with it and you're transparent. It's like it is what it is. But I'm curious what you do.
Not against a fee by any means. I've looked at it in the past for a couple larger opportunities, especially on RFPs. If you're going to go to RFP, you're on a fee. There's almost no way around it. But I don't have a single current client on a fee. Not that it doesn't exist in my firm. A lot of our large accounts do have fees, but I've seen accounts where not feed upwards well over $1 million in revenue, and then I've seen the same size of accounts feed for 175 grand. So I guess part of it to me is when I'm looking at opportunities, it's like, well, okay, so if this is an opportunity, but it's under feed by 500 grand, 400 grand. Is that worth my time? Is that worth my team's time? And a lot of times the answer to that is no. I avoid RFPs as much as I can, because I don't think maybe we're best positioned to do RFPs. I'm not best positioned to do RFPs. I don't have a ton of practice. I wouldn't vote on myself in a boardroom against someone more experienced. So for me at this point in my career, it's best avoided. And I do have a personal coach to help me with presentation and all that, but I just feel like I'm a couple years
Of course
away.
you would, David.
Yes, of course.
Dude, you are who I wish I would have been when I was 26. What now I'm 40, so I
Whatever gives me an edge.
that's awesome, man.
Let's talk future. Where does future David want to go? What's possible? What do you want to be? You have a number you're shooting for? Let's talk about the next 10, 20 years. Where are you going?
I will answer that. I just wanted to touch one more time. I was thinking about Micah's last question. Another piece with the fees is that some of the specialty niches that I've found a ton of success in don't allow for fees. So the carriers are MGAs or MGUs, and going to a fee basis wouldn't reduce the premium at all. And I run into nowadays the average account size I'm running into is probably 1.5 million to 5.5 million premium. And so those accounts are all commission. They have to be commission, and that's hugely advantageous too, unless you can put them in a captive, of course. But Trey, to your point, where do I see myself going? So I set a goal for myself to have a $3 million book by the time I was 30. Now I'm at 1.3 with some inherited clients. 26. I have 4 more fiscal years to get there. I think I'm on track for 3 million, but by the time I'm 30, 3 million would be fantastic. By the time I'm 35, I think I'd want 5 or 6 million. But more importantly, the size of my accounts, I would hope to be closer to that $200,000 mark on average. And what I really want is to work on ENR 400 general contractors, specialty subcontractors. I just want to work on. I'd really like to have a $1 billion revenue client by the time I'm 30.
It's cool. I used to have a couple. One of my biggest clients at MMA was a nice ENR. They were on the list. I think I had 2 on there. But okay, that's awesome, man. I mean, curious. Okay, there's guys listening that are at 1.5, right, or just around your size, and they want to go to the next level too. But clearly, you got a process, and you got like it seems like it's inevitable, like it's going to happen. It's not like I hope I get to there. Like I would bet on you if I was a betting man. What do you say to those guys that want to get to the next level in terms of 2 things? How do you get into bigger accounts? Is it just the same process? Just call bigger accounts, and then like what else could they be doing differently to do it, to get to that 1.5 to 2 if they're trying to get there, or 2.5?
For the first part of your question, I would say the biggest differentiator to get in bigger accounts is to not overlook the little things. If that makes sense. Everyone talks about, it's the same process. You just have to call them. Yeah, that's part of it. But you also have to be willing to go out of your way to show them that you want their business. I've heard it plenty of times on larger accounts. They essentially say, every insurance broker is the same. Every surety broker is the same. You guys all have the same resources. You all have the same RFPs. And it's true to some degree. It's really about the individual. So being willing to hop on a plane and go meet them, being willing to show them more attention than their current broker, and to show them that you're going to do whatever it takes to be a better partner for them. So for me, it's maybe more about the personality, the story, the drive, the intrinsic values that they're looking at, rather than some magical solution that their current broker probably already has. And then what was your second question again?
What's one thing that if someone wants to go to the next level, right? What should they do if you want to get to that? You're at a 1.5, or you're at a 1, and you want to get to that 2 or 3, like what would you recommend? And there may be, because the biggest thing I hear is I'm stuck. That's what I hear from people who reach out to me a lot that are in that 1 to 1.5 range, like you. Hey, I don't know if I have much more capacity, right? Like I'm kind of stuck right now. I know I need to get into bigger accounts, but beyond that, like what else can they do to buy back time? I'd be curious to hear what your plans are or thoughts are on that.
I mean, for myself, when I think about a couple years down the road, I know I won't be able to sustain the same amount of the same results that I'm currently getting. I'm just going to get too busy. So the easy answer is an account executive support team that you can trust. That's probably the easy answer. I think another answer I would give is, I don't really care how old you are or where you're at in your career, but pick up the phone. Prospect. I feel like I see so many people offload prospecting to interns or to younger individuals, and yeah, it worked great for me and some of the mentors I work with. But I know for a fact that I have more trust and faith in myself prospecting than I do anybody else. So like we do have interns here, we do have younger individuals on our team. I don't have them prospect for me. I train them on prospecting, but I feel like I'm best positioned to effectively communicate what we do best and what I do best to the prospect. So I'm going to do that and control that process.
So I'm a ENR contractor doing 700 million a year in sales. I'm the CFO. Cold call me. What would you say? I pick up the phone. Sorry to put you on the spot. I'm just kind of want to hear your track.
No, it's great. I'd say, hey, Micah, this is David Goldsmith over at IMA. I'm the VP of our large construction team. How are you doing?
Doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. Well, hey, I appreciate you taking my call. I wanted to make it brief. I'm going to be down in Dallas here in 2 weeks. We have an event down there. Let's call it Con Expo. I'm going to be down in your neck of the woods. We work primarily with large general contractors, typically ENR level contractors. I'm sure you already have a relationship, whether that's Aon or Marsh or whoever. But we do very well in this space when it comes to delivering resources for our general contractors that make a difference. Whether that's SDI, whether it's an alternative risk financing arrangement, large deductibles, captives, you name it. I'm not going to make assumptions about what you guys currently do or what the relationship is that you currently have. I just want to grab lunch, grab coffee, connect, hopefully learn a little bit more about you guys, and more importantly, share some insights that we've been seeing with our own general contractors in this space. Something to that effect.
Dude, you know why I like that so much? Is because I've been taking the same approach on much smaller contractors than you're calling, because I'm trying to stay more local-ish, I guess you could say, but I like that you're just like, hey, I know you got a relationship already, and then it's just like, hey, I just wanted to share some thoughts and just get to know your business. And it's funny because if you listen to like all the cold calling experts that would sell like tech or whatever, or try to infiltrate into the sales, it's like, give them a quick soundbite, right? Like, hey, we save contractors 30%. Can we meet? It's like, dude, just reach out to the CFO and talk to him like a fellow CFO. It's like, or a VP of construction. It's like, hey man, I know you got an agent. Can we just grab a lunch sometime? I just want to share some ideas with you. We've helped a ton of other people in your space.
Yeah,
And like, it's
yeah.
weird that they just talk to you,
It really is all about tonality. And I've said that to everyone that is interested in getting some tips or getting a little bit of training on cold calling. It's 100% how you say something. It's not what you say. I've gone down that track of, you save 25%, 30%, proprietary markets, this and that. It's, I get more success just being a human. And I always say, be a human. If you have to throw a couple ums in there or, trip over your words a little bit on purpose so you sound a little bit more human, do it. But a lot of the time when I'm calling someone, especially, specialty subcontractors, I'm calling the CFO or CEO and I'm saying, hey, look, this is what we do. We weren't really in this space a couple years ago. We were more focused on large general contractors, but we've been making a big splash up and down the West Coast. So much so that I'm headed down to the Bay Area in a couple weeks to meet with 3 of your competitors. I don't know if you play well with them or not, but we are really good at this risk management thing, and I'd love to grab coffee and just learn more about you.
Awesome, man.
So I have no idea what an ENR contractor is, and I Googled it. And so for those of you who are goobers like me and don't play in the space, I think this is correct. Correct me if this is not. An ENR contractor is a top-tier construction firm ranked annually by Engineering News Record based on typically the highest annual revenue in the U.S. or internationally. These elite companies, which include GCs, specialty, and design build firms, are recognized for handling large-scale, complex, and high-value projects. I clearly never ran into anybody like that. Is that correct? Is that what an ENR contractor is?
Essentially, yeah. It's the largest 400 contractors that report the revenue to the ENR journal.
Got it. I'm just a tow
A lot of
truck guy
environmental
over here
guys on
drinking
there.
coffee.
Yeah, a lot of environmental. I know in Houston. I wonder if it's something along the coast, because Houston, we had a good amount that would kind of, be on that list or coming on and off that list too. So
Yeah, a lot of oil and gas contractors.
All right, so
Go ahead,
here's
Trey.
my favorite question. And you're kind of already doing it, so maybe you just kind of restate the high level. But if you had to start over from zero, which is essentially what you're doing, like what's your playbook? How do you start over from zero? What does that look like?
Yeah, find mentors would be the most important thing. Volunteer to do work. Ask. What you don't ask for, you don't get. The mentorship is more important than anything else. Mentorship and cold call, prospect relentlessly, educate yourself relentlessly. If you have the opportunity in your 20s, as bad advice as this may be for some, I wouldn't treat this like a job. I would treat this like it's everything, because what you do now is going to set you up for extreme success 5-10 years down the road, and you really won't know what that looks like until you start to see the delta between yourself and your coworkers and your competitors, and that delta could be extreme.
Can I ask one personal question? Do you just curious, and if you don't want to answer, do you have kids or are you married or anything?
No.
Okay.
No, I have a girlfriend, long-term
Yeah,
girlfriend.
yeah. No, that's just curious because it's the way. One of the things you might bump into when you get in your 30s and you start having kids is it's not only tough to try to do everything and manage the kids, but also you might find your priorities changing a little bit. Where it's like I used to want the $5 million book, but now I'm cool with the 3, and I got 2 kids at home and I want to make their games a little bit more right. Kudos to you for having the foresight for all the younger folks listening to, or if you could be 30s and not have kids, but you want to, or whatever, to kind of think ahead, right? Because you're laying that groundwork now, which I think is cool that you're doing that and having that foresight. And not a lot of people have that maturity or that mindset about them. You know, it's the old, begin with the end in mind kind of mindset. So I think probably having those mentors, I'm sure they spoke some of that into you as well. They probably shared that with you too. Like, hey man, just
Yeah.
do it now. Build that base. And
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm on
yeah,
a plane every week from, the beginning of January through April. I do not want to be on a plane every week in my mid-30s when I have a family or kids. And I hear that a lot in this space. A lot of the guys that are high performers kind of have the same idea in mind. It's like, do it now so we don't have to do it later.
yeah, yeah.
Our interview with Bryce Ellis, he talks about that too. I asked him literally the same question, and it's it just goes to your maturity, man. Like your maturity and your professionalism, and like Micah said, the foresight to see that like I'm building now so that I can then be a dad and a husband when it's time to do that. And so kudos to you. That's just, I don't know, man. It's super, super impressive.
I appreciate it, guys. We'll have to
So let
touch
me
base.
ask you this, and then we'll wrap this up. We got 3 minutes left, and we'll get off. What did we not ask you that you would want to talk about, or comma, how can we make this podcast better? What would you want to hear us talk about? What would you do to make this better?
What did you not ask me? You didn't ask me about my email, the new way I engage in cold emails. So I'll touch on that. So I got away from email blasting, but I turned it into taking the current prospects that I have. So let's say I have 1,000 prospects, 500 prospects to make it easy. Separate them into 4 buckets, 125 each. General contractors, specialty subs, real estate, whatever it is that makes sense. And instead of email blasting them, you're emailing them valuable info. And so our firm will put together, and I'm sure a lot of firms do this, Q1 construction report, Q2 construction report, annual real estate state of the market. And you take those and you email them. If you're going to go to Boise and you've got 25 prospects in Boise, emailing those guys something personalized. It's a way to streamline your prospecting without sacrificing the human element, in my opinion. If I'm going to an association event, call it ConExpo, I'm reaching out to all the excavating and heavy civil and demo guys and saying, hey, are you going to be down at ConExpo? Would love to connect. And doing that as the prospecting, but automating it to some degree is hugely advantageous. General contractors into another bucket, and you email them and say, hey, congrats on making the ENR. That's awesome. Would love to connect next time I'm down in your woods or your neck of the woods. So that's one piece I wanted to touch on, because I do think email blasting has its use, but you got to use a tool like Outreach or Zoom Engage to be able to organize that well enough. So tech stack tip. And then in terms of making your guys' podcast better, I think the only ask that I would have as someone watching your guys' show is that you maybe find some super producers to interview. I think that would be great to see what it's like going from a $3 million book to a $10 million book, what some of that looks like. I think there's probably a lot of wisdom in that for people that are younger too, but it might show like, hey, if I want to be at a $10 million book in 20 years, what do I need to start practicing now? What's the difference between you and someone like me or someone like Micah? I think that
Sounds
would
like
be
you
awesome
have
to see.
Sounds like y'all have some killers over there. Could you, off air, could you hook me up with a name or two?
Absolutely.
All right, awesome. Micah, what you got?
Man, I'm speechless. No, that was really good, man. I just want to say thanks for coming on. It means a lot, I think. It's been cool getting to know you, through LinkedIn and now doing a podcast with you. And I think the biggest thing I take away, honestly, is, and I've been thinking about this a lot, is the whole mentorship thing. And I think it's cool that you change agencies, were willing to basically throw up a goose egg year one at a big high pressure firm. We all know those, the pressure's there, right? But do that and then dive into the learning and then link up with some good mentors. I mean, that's kind of, when I look back over my career, I think that's one of the biggest things that I didn't do is I didn't really have a mentor, an older senior mentor. I had guys I would come and talk to here and there, but I didn't really like latch on to anybody. And I pay for that now. I've done fine, but I think that's awesome that you had that support system and you did that. So that's cool.
Yeah. And mentors, just for the audience, mentors do not have to be just high performing producers. Two of my best mentors, one of them's an account manager and one of them's an account executive that hasn't ever really had a producing role in her entire career.
Great point.
So I just food for thought there that not everything you need is from someone just like you.
Yeah. That's a great point. AEs are super smart. That's my time at MMA. I learned a lot there in those first couple of years because of latching on to the account managers and some of those people that were just seasoned and see so much more, right? So good point there.
I'm going to use, as long as I have your permission, you've put it out into the public space, so I'm going to use it, but I just want to run it by you. I like to take like a key clip that we talk about and turn it into something kind of proprietary. So I'd like to use your cold email. Can I call it like David G's cold email playbook and then kind of just put a big broad overview and put that out there?
Absolutely. Yeah. No problem.
Okay. And then awesome. Last question, and then we'll sign off. When we did our pre-call, kind of just to talk shop, you said, and I quote, "Yes, my girlfriend was listening to the podcast, and she said, David, you should probably call them and find out what you're going to be talking about just to kind of get an idea and an overview." So my question when we left that is, why the hell is your girlfriend listening to our podcast? Is she in production, or she just finds two idiots talking about insurance riveting?
So funny enough, my girlfriend's dad owns a benefits brokerage firm, and she is working to take that firm over. So I told her about how she should start listening to this podcast, and in that, she's really, really enjoyed it and gotten a lot out of it, especially when you bring benefits producers on this podcast. So we're a big insurance family. Her dad's an insurance broker. She's an insurance broker. I'm an insurance broker, and then her sister is also an insurance broker.
Let's go.
Wow. That's awesome.
It's in the family.
One big insurance family.
Awesome, man. David, thank you so much, dude. Appreciate you. You're super impressive. You're the man.
Awesome. Appreciate it, guys. Let's stay in touch.
Thanks, David. See you, man.